To that extent, I've also been working on systems. Ooh, super exciting, right? Another really sexy topic.
You're listening to the New Music Industry with David Andrew Wiebe.
Hello, and welcome once again to the New Music Industry Podcast. I am your host, David Andrew Wiebe, and we're going to start off with what's new this week. I posted a lot to social media and the blog in the preceding weeks. This week I've been a little quiet. Some of you might be wondering why. Some of you maybe not so much. Either way, you're going to start to get a sense of why that is based on what I've been up to. So the first thing that I've been working on is my taxes. Ugh. Yeah, it's so much fun, but we've all got to do it, right? And before I get too carried away with the content hamster wheel, I find it important to create space for the urgent as well as the important. We really don't want the urgent to take over our lives, but those things do need to be dealt with as well. But creating that space has been really important for some other reasons. I've really been taking some time to step back, invest in myself. I've been taking several courses. I'm doing a lot of reading, as I often do, and I'm putting a lot more time into the strategy for Music Entrepreneur HQ. To that extent, I've also been working on systems. Ooh, super exciting, right? Another really sexy topic. But you know, the really great thing about creating these systems, and we call them frameworks. We really don't like terms like systems, checklists, standard operating procedures, workflows. We found those to be demotivating. When we switched to frameworks, we felt a lot less constrained. So that might be a tip for all of you creative minds out there. If you're more logically minded, then you're probably not going to have any issues with systems. But I'm very operationally minded because I know how important that is. And even I struggled with this for a very long time. So making that switch over to frameworks has helped me a lot. People talk about working smarter, not harder. But unless you know how to do that, you're just going to end up working harder anyway. And I believe systems is one of those ways that you can begin to work smarter. Basically, you're defining the scope of all of your activity because honestly, it's really easy to start your day going and doing something like social media marketing and spend the entire day without being conscious of what you're doing and what results it's going to produce. Meanwhile, if the scope of your process or activity is fully defined and finite, meaning there is a beginning and end to it, you're going to be far more effective overall, I promise. The other thing I just wanted to touch on real quick is the promise of the podcast. And one of the things that we've been doing all along, whether you know it or not, is meticulously transcribing every single episode of the show and putting it on the website in the show notes. Now, this is one of those tasks that can take time, and even though I have a helper, it's easy to fall behind and it slipped through the cracks many times. I think roughly 60-70% of episodes have transcriptions, but many others currently do not. Now, I'm still planning to have every single episode transcribed, but it may not go live the moment the episode goes live. We also gave listeners like you the ability to go and download transcriptions. I think in the meantime, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is just creating a PDF for the show notes and making that available for download instead. I'm still going to do my best to make sure it's value adding and something that you'll actually want. But that's one of the changes I'm making for now, and also one of the ways I'm creating more space for myself to work on the things that are really going to make a difference in my business. But it doesn't matter what capacity you're utilizing the podcast, whether you're reading the transcriptions, listening to the audio, or watching the video. We just want you to know that we really appreciate you. So that's what's been happening in my world. I would love to hear what's been happening in your world, and I will share contact details with you a little later in the show. And with that, I'd like to get to today's topic. And I guess you could say this is kind of long overdue because we're almost up to episode 200. And when I started this podcast, I basically thought of it as an extension or continuation of my last music business podcast, which went through several name changes. Let's not go over that again. So even though there's kind of been a break in the middle, for me, in many ways, this is kind of just doing the same thing with a little more structure around it. Obviously, I applied whatever lessons I learned during the creation of my previous podcast and brought those into this one, which is why it's done better overall. So what I wanted to do in this episode is introduce myself. Although you could think of this as a reintroduction, it's really more of a first-time formal introduction to yours truly, because I haven't really created an episode strictly around myself, who I am, what I'm passionate about, and that kind of thing. Now, there's no doubt I've shared a lot about myself on the podcast over the years, but I'm not assuming everybody can piece it all together or know exactly where I'm coming from. So yeah, you could say this is kind of a crucial episode. Now, the other thing about this is it was really easy to overthink the process because I wanted to share a little bit about myself without sharing too much. I wanted to share the highlights of my story such that I wouldn't bore you in the process. And let's be honest, even though it's kind of self-indulgent, I just wanted to build up my credibility a little bit. But that's what others do for me and have done for me, and I've gotten a lot of great reviews and testimonials and quotes to this point. So I really didn't want to overindulge in that sense. And so what I decided to do, I decided to take a portion of my About page on my artist/personal website at davidandrewwiebe.com and read that. It's not going to give you a full picture of who I am or what I've done. I'm not sure I could even sum that all up in a 1 hour episode even, but it's still going to give you a sense of my childhood, my interests, my personality, and a lot of the key things that define or have come to define my identity. So let's get into it. These are the 3 things I love most. I love creating. From the moment I was born, I was engaged in drawing, painting, and crafting. Because I grew up in Japan, I ended up writing and illustrating my own manga, also known as graphic novels, drawing mazes, and conceptualizing video game ideas. This went on for the first 14 years or so of my life. When I turned 14, I started writing songs. I don't know why. Maybe it had something to do with my dad passing away. I needed a way to express my angst and resolve pain. I filled binders with lyrics instead of engaging in schoolwork, but I also took as many art classes as school allowed. At 15, I would perform a rap in front of an audience for the first time, which introduced me to the thrill of live performance. At 17, I picked up the guitar, and I would spend the next 10 years of my life trying to make it in music. I played in many bands and even released some work as a solo artist. During that time, I also honed my skills as a graphic and web designer, blogger, podcaster, and YouTuber. At 27, my focus started shifting to business, and I ended up joining 2 network marketing companies. Ultimately, I didn't achieve much in those companies, though I learned a lot about entrepreneurship and business. I started to see how everything I discovered in business could be applied to music, so I created Music Entrepreneur HQ, an online resource dedicated to helping independent musicians and music entrepreneurs navigate these tumultuous times in the music industry. This is my main focus right now. Around that time, I also invested in a music industry startup and worked for them as a digital marketer on a contract basis. I started learning everything I possibly could about digital marketing, including blogging, podcasting, social media, email marketing, PR, SEO, analytics, and more. Shortly before turning 29, the startup no longer required my services and let me go. But after taking a bit of a break, I started focusing on my own projects. I've shared elsewhere about the many niche sites I started around that time, as I knew I wanted to be in business. To make ends meet, I also started ghostwriting and working on my first book. Through my many experiences in digital marketing, my passion for writing became rather apparent, which explains why I've written so many blog posts, articles, and books since. And this is where my passion still lies. Today, I still create a bit of everything, whether it's artwork, music, articles, books, podcasts, videos, courses, or otherwise. I'm looking to get everything I possibly can out of writing and podcasting. And the truth of the matter is, after talking to Cheryl Engelhardt in the last episode, I am looking for a way to deeply integrate music into my life again. I never fully left or departed music, it's just that I would like to create more. I also love learning. It sounds crazy, but I got hooked on books because of video games, specifically my love of SimCity and SimCity 2000. Wanted to learn everything I possibly could about those games, so I would purchase guidebooks and devour them. In ensuing years, I got into fishing, so then I started reading books about fishing to increase my chances of catching fish on my outings. That's how I've processed information ever since. If I wanted to learn about personal development or comedy, I bought books. If I wanted to learn about marketing or business, I bought books. I've been a voracious consumer of podcasts as well, and became a podcaster myself. I've been podcasting for over 10 years now. I still love learning and study on a wide variety of subjects. I love adventure. I recently became a digital nomad so that I could begin traveling and seeing more of the world. After over 20 years in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, I moved to Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada in October 2019 and even became an official BC resident. I'm not planning to have a permanent address for a while, but when I do, it will likely be in Vancouver, BC, Canada. In the coming months and years, I plan to explore various parts of Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, North America, and South America. I love going for walks in strange cities, trying new foods, meeting people, learning about different cultures, speaking and performing in public, and more. Like anyone else, I have a shy and introverted side too, and when I'm working, I prefer to work in solitude for long, uninterrupted stretches of time. So there you go, the 3 things I love most and the trajectory it has taken my life on. I hope that gave you a better sense of who I am, and I hope you found some things that you could personally relate to in that story. We're going to move on now to news and updates, although I don't have a whole lot to add here. Things are going well with my latest book, The Music Entrepreneur Code, so if you haven't heard about it or checked it out yet, would love for you to do so. Kindle and paperback editions are available on Amazon, and the specially designed PDF version, which I happen to like, it comes with 2 bonuses too, is available on musicentrepreneur.hq.com. It's time for listener comments, and we had a 5-star review from Jazz Fan Forever, who says, "Big fan of David's show and all the great content he comes out with for music entrepreneurs. So much wisdom from him and his guests. Keep it up." As always, thank you for the reviews. We look forward to hearing from you as well. Let's keep those ratings and reviews coming. The best place to leave them is on iTunes. If you have any comments or questions about this episode, the best way to get in touch with me is on Twitter. And my username is at David A. Wiebe, DavidAwiebe. Well, as you know, there are many aspects to building a successful music career and being a music entrepreneur. One of the things I touched on earlier is systems. Now, if this is something you struggle with or don't know where to get started, you're definitely not alone. And the good news is I can help you get up and running fast. I really want you to have this free report because I know it can make a big difference for you. Go to musicentrepreneur.hq.com/free-report. It's all yours. I made it for you. It'll help you solve many of your challenges in your music career, not just systems, but I wanted to make sure that you got a copy. This is David Andrew Wiebe, and I look forward to seeing you on the stages of the world. Thank you for listening. Music in this episode was brought to you by Brian Young. Wherever you're listening to this right now, please consider leaving a 5-star review and comment to help us get the word out about the podcast.